On your most recent trip to the region, most of the moderate Arab leaders with whom you met were not very enthusiastic about a U.S. strike against Iraq. King Abdullah of Jordan said to attack Baghdad now would be a disaster. Crown Prince Abdullah said, I do not believe it is in the United States' interests or the interest of the region or the world's interest to do so.
What I would say is that our friends in the region are equally concerned about the problems we see in Iraq, specifically the development of weapons of mass destruction by Saddam Hussein. This is a man of great evil, as the president said, and he is actively pursuing nuclear weapons at this time, and we think that's cause for concern for us and for everybody in the region. And I found during the course of my travels that it is indeed a problem of great concern.
General Myers, Kenneth Edelman has written that if the United States were to go into Iraq to remove Saddam Hussein, militarily it would be a cakewalk. Is that the view here at the Pentagon?
When we put our young sons and daughters of this country in harm's way, I don't think you can ever call that a cakewalk. Well, what we know is that the situation since Desert Storm and today has changed dramatically, both for U.S. and coalition forces and for Iraqi forces. The Iraqi armed forces is about 40% in terms of numbers of what it was in the Gulf War.
In hindsight, one might have wished that we had done more to anticipate a September 11th and prevent it. Although if we'd gone to war against Afghanistan before September 11th, people would have said we had no justification. We can't wait for a nuclear or chemical or biological attack to go and find the people who did it.
Is it fair to say Saddam Hussein's days are numbered?
I would hope so.
Is it fair to say so?
I think so.
There doesn't seem to be a whole lot of support among the allies in Europe for another U.S. military strike at Iraq with the aim of regime change or getting rid of Saddam Hussein. Can you go it alone?
I'm not going to get into that. You can be sure the United States isn't going to do anything that it's not capable of doing, and if we do something, we'll be capable of doing it. But it's not for me to make those judgments. You
saw the story in today's USA Today on the front page, suggesting that your military chiefs are not enthusiastic about going after Iraq right now, that the military might be stretched too thin already in Afghanistan.
I meet with those folks all the time. I have no reason to give credence to that.
For much of the last century, America's defense relied on the Cold War doctrines of deterrence and containment. In some cases, those strategies still apply. But new threats also require new thinking. Containment is not possible when unbalanced dictators with weapons of mass destruction can deliver those weapons on missiles or secretly provide them to terrorist allies. We must take the battle to the enemy, disrupt his plans, and confront the worst threats before they emerge. In the world we have entered, the only path to safety is the path of action, and this nation will act.
What do you make of the statement made by the Iraqi government yesterday that Iraq has no weapons of mass destruction and is not developing any?
They're lying. Next.
We continue to see reports on the state of planning to get rid of Saddam Hussein in Iraq. I know it's unlikely that you'll share any details with us, though we'd be delighted to hear them, sir.
Somebody else thinks they are.
But I wonder, Mr. President, regardless of when or how, is it your firm intention to get rid of Saddam Hussein in Iraq?
Yes.
And how hard do you think it will be?
It's the stated policy of this government to have regime change, and it hasn't changed. And we'll use all tools at our disposal to do so.
When Saddam Hussein violates his word that he gave when the Persian Gulf War ended by saying he would allow for unfettered inspection by international inspectors and does not keep his word, that's a real cause of concern for the United States and for the United Nations.
Concern, but is it a cause to go to war and kill a lot of people?
I'm not going to speculate about what the future may or may not hold.
Is there evidence, what kind of evidence is there, that the government of Iraq is in any way hosting, supporting, sponsoring al-Qaeda or any other terrorists? inside Iraq?
Well, I suppose at some moment it may make sense to discuss that publicly, and it doesn't today. But what I have said is a fact, that there are al-Qaeda in a number of locations in Iraq, and the suggestion that those people who are so attentive in denying human rights to their population aren't aware of where these folks are or what they're doing is ludicrous.
One thing that has to factor in is the growing number of U.S. allies, Russia, Germany, Bahrain, now Canada, who say that if you go to war with Saddam, you're going to go alone. Does the American military have the capability to prosecute this war alone?
Look, if you're asking, are you asking about Iraq? That the subject didn't come up in this meeting, but having said that, we take all threats seriously, and we will continue to consult with our friends and allies. I know there's this kind of intense speculation that seems to be going on, a kind of a, I don't know how you would describe it. It's kind of a churning.
Frenzy.
Frenzy is how the Secretary would describe it. But the subject didn't come up. The American people know my position, and that we will look at all options, and we will consider all technologies available to us, and diplomacy and intelligence. But one thing is for certain is that this administration agrees that Saddam Hussein is a threat.